Nadir Suleiman thought he had found his future when he met the enchanting Ayshera Nabil. But what began as a dream turned into a terrifying descent the moment he landed in Germany, where Rurik Hartmann watched him from the shadows and Mirella Kassov held secrets that could expose a criminal network built on lies, vanished men, and a love scam so calculated that Nadir barely escaped becoming its next silent victim. Nadir Suleiman had always been an ordinary man, living an unremarkable life. At 32, he worked quietly in a small technical support office in Lahore, surrounded by humming computers and stacks of repair requests. His routine had no adventure, no excitement, and no real surprises. He spent most of his days solving other people's problems, while his own life sat still, untouched by anything unexpected. Everything changed the day he received a message from a stranger who looked like she belonged in another world. The message came from a profile belonging to a woman named Ayshera Nabil. Her photos looked like something out of a travel magazine. She stood in ancient Egyptian temples, posed beside turquoise beaches, and appeared in elegant clothes that suggested wealth and sophistication. Her posture in every picture carried confidence, and her captions hinted at a fast-paced life filled with responsibilities and constant travel. Nadir stared at her profile longer than he intended, studying every detail as if trying to understand how a woman like her could find someone like him worth messaging. Her introduction was simple, yet it struck him with an unfamiliar excitement that he had never experienced through a screen. Over the following weeks, Ayshera shared pieces of her life with him. She claimed to be from an old Egyptian family with a long history in business and culture. She described herself as someone searching for genuine connection in a world full of superficial people. Nadir found himself believing every word. She seemed to know exactly how to make him feel special, valued, and chosen. While others in his life barely noticed his quiet nature, she called it thoughtful. While his steady job felt dull to him, she described it as admirable. He began to rely on her messages for confidence and comfort. As months passed, Nadir felt consumed by thoughts of her. He checked his phone constantly, waiting for her updates from Berlin, Cairo, or wherever her travels took her. She sent him photos of places she visited, snapshots of expensive hotels, and images of handwritten letters she claimed she wrote for him. She painted herself as a lonely but strong woman, surrounded by pressure from her wealthy relatives who controlled much of her life. She said she trusted only a few people, and Nadir happened to be one of them. The more she opened up, the more Nadir felt drawn to her. Her attention made him feel alive in a way he had never felt before. He did not notice how carefully she shaped her messages, how every detail she shared added to the impression of a woman both glamorous and trapped. He only saw the connection, the feeling of destiny pulling him toward her. Nadir's co-workers noticed a change in him. He seemed more cheerful, more hopeful, and more distracted. His father remarked that Nadir had begun dressing better, as if trying to match someone else's expectations. Even though Nadir never admitted it, he was already imagining a future that included Ayshera. He pictured bringing her to Pakistan, showing her the streets he grew up on, and introducing her to his family. Every day, these thoughts felt less like dreams and more like plans waiting to unfold. One afternoon, Ayshera told Nadir that she would soon attend a major business event in Germany. She presented it as a rare opportunity for them to meet at last. She described the event as stressful and overwhelming, but insisted that seeing him would give her the emotional support she needed. Nadir felt honored that she wanted him by her side. She encouraged him to take a short trip, promising that everything would be arranged once he landed. Without questioning anything, Nadir searched for flights. He spent his savings without hesitation, convinced he was investing in a life-changing moment. He imagined greeting her at the airport, imagined her smiling at him, imagined the beginning of a story he had waited for all his life. He booked the ticket with a pounding heart, unaware that he was stepping into something far more dangerous than he could ever imagine. In the days before his trip, Nadir felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. He packed carefully, choosing his best clothes and making sure he looked presentable. He rehearsed how he might act when he finally met her, even practicing how he would stand when she saw him for the first time. His family believed he was traveling for work and wished him luck. Only Nadir knew the real reason behind the journey. The night before his flight, he lay awake imagining every moment ahead, He did not know that with every minute of anticipation, he was walking closer to a trap built perfectly for him, crafted by someone he believed he knew, yet had never truly met. Nadir arrived in Berlin with a hopeful heart, imagining the moment he would finally see Ayshera. The airport felt massive, filled with unfamiliar sounds, languages, and hurried footsteps. He kept scanning every passing face, convinced she would appear any second. Dressed in the elegant style he had seen in her photos, as the minutes turned into hours, his excitement slowly shifted into uncertainty. His phone buzzed only once, with a brief message explaining she was caught in an unexpected family situation and could not reach the airport. She sent him the address of an apartment where he could stay until she arrived. The message felt rushed, almost mechanical, but Nadir brushed off his discomfort. He believed delays were simply part of her complicated life. He took a taxi through long stretches of quiet streets, noticing how still and cold the city seemed compared to the vibrant noise back home. When the taxi stopped, Nadir realized he had been brought to a neighborhood far removed from central Berlin. The buildings looked plain, old, and strangely lifeless. The apartment he was told to enter sat at the end of a narrow path with dim streetlights flickering above. He carried his luggage up the stairs, trying to ignore the dull ache of disappointment forming in his chest. Inside, the apartment felt abandoned rather than newly rented. There was only a small bed, a rusty wardrobe, and a table with uneven legs. The air carried a faint metallic odor that made him uneasy. The windows overlooked an empty street with no signs of movement. He searched the corners of the room, noticing stains on the wall and marks on the floor, as if someone had dragged heavy furniture across it. Nothing resembled the life Ayshera had described in her messages. Still, Nadir convinced himself she must have booked this place only temporarily. Hours turned into days, each filled with more excuses from Ayshera. She claimed she was facing issues involving legal documents, family approvals, and travel restrictions. Her messages became shorter, less emotional, and sometimes delayed by several hours. Nadir waited patiently, telling himself she was overwhelmed and needed time. But the atmosphere around him grew stranger with every passing day. Late one evening, Nadir noticed the lights suddenly flickering as if someone was tampering with the electrical system. He heard footsteps coming from the apartment above his own. Even though the building manager had told him he was the only guest at the moment, the footsteps were heavy, irregular, and pacing back and forth for long stretches of time. On several nights, someone seemed to pause outside his door, testing the handle with a slow, deliberate movement. Every sound felt like a quiet warning, but Nadir tried to push away the fear building inside him. His first real sign that something was seriously wrong came when he left the apartment to buy groceries. As he walked through the hallway, he noticed a man standing near the stairwell, watching him without expression. The man's clothes looked worn, and he seemed out of place, as if he had been waiting specifically for Nadir to appear. When their eyes met, the man stepped aside without a word and vanished down the stairs. Nadir returned to the apartment with the unsettling feeling that he was not just a visitor but someone being monitored. A day later, a letter slipped under his door, added to his alarm. It was a bill addressed to him, charging him for rent, cleaning services, and extra fees he had never agreed to. The paper had his full name written neatly across the top, even though he had not provided it to anyone except Ayshera. Confusion tightened around him as he questioned how his personal information had been used without his knowledge. The hours in the apartment became heavier. Nadir found himself sleeping lightly, waking to unfamiliar noises and distant echoing sounds from the building. Sometimes he felt as though someone was standing just beyond the thin walls, listening to his movements. He sent messages to Ayshera, asking for clarity, but her replies offered no reassurance. Every new message felt colder, as if she were becoming someone entirely different from the woman he had known online. Despite the growing tension, Nadir stayed because he still believed there must be an explanation for everything. He told himself she would show up any day that he had come too far to abandon the journey. But deep inside, he sensed something wrong was unfolding around him, something built carefully and deliberately. He could feel the walls of uncertainty closing in, warning him that the story he had believed in so passionately might not be the truth at all. The fifth morning in Berlin began with a cold draft slipping under the apartment door, carrying an unsettling feeling that something was about to shift. Nadir had barely slept, his mind weighed down by the unanswered questions surrounding Ayshera and the strange behavior in the building. When he noticed the envelope lying on the floor, he picked it up with hesitant fingers. His heart dropped when he saw his own name printed across the top in bold letters. Inside was a detailed statement listing overdue rent, maintenance costs, and unexplained service charges that had accumulated since the day he arrived. None of it made sense. He had never signed any rental agreement, never spoken to anyone about payments, and had certainly never requested the additional services mentioned. The realization that someone had used his full identity to create obligations shook him deeply. His unease grew when he stepped into the hallway and found himself face to face with the building manager, a man named Rurik Hartmann. Rurik was tall, with a severe expression and cold eyes that seemed to study Nadir with unsettling intensity. Without warning, Rurik handed him another paper, reminding him that unpaid fees could lead to legal action. There was something unnervingly calm about the way he presented the threat, as if he had done the same to many others before. Nadir. The manager's composure suggested that he knew more about Nadir's circumstances than he admitted. The encounter left Nadir feeling cornered inside a situation he had never intended to be part of. As the day passed, Nadir's anxiety pushed him to examine Ayshera's online presence more closely. When he opened her profile, he noticed subtle changes he had overlooked before. Several older posts had disappeared, replaced by new ones with poorly edited backgrounds. Faces of other people appeared faintly in the corners of her images, cut out awkwardly as if she had tried to remove them. Her follower list had strange repetition in names, many of them featuring minimal information and generic photos. Most concerning was the discovery that she had typed nearly identical comments on the profiles of multiple men. The affectionate phrases she once claimed were meant only for him appeared on posts made by strangers in different countries. The illusion of uniqueness that had captivated him for months began to crumble. Nadir attempted to verify her phone number, hoping to find at least one piece of solid truth. But the number traced back to a virtual registration connected to a company in Cyprus known for masking identities. He searched for any mention of her name in public records and found nothing. No trace of her supposed business, no sign of her wealthy family, nothing that connected her to any real, verifiable existence. Every link he followed led to a dead end. He felt the ground beneath his trust collapsing. By evening, the atmosphere in the building grew heavier. He sensed movement outside his door, subtle but persistent, as if someone had been pacing the hallway for hours. When he pressed his ear against the door, he heard faint breathing and the quiet scrape of shoes. His instincts warned him not to open it. He backed away, feeling the room tighten around him like an invisible grip. Unable to shake the mounting fear, Nadir searched online for others who might have known her. After hours of digging, he stumbled on a forum where people discussed online romance scams. One comment caught his attention, a man describing a woman who shared similar photos, similar stories about inheritance, and similar excuses for delayed meetings. The resemblance to Ayshera was impossible to ignore. His chest tightened as he read further, learning that the woman had lured victims to European countries, then disappeared while leaving them with unexpected bills, fabricated contracts, and threats from local partners who pretended to be landlords or officials. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces around him clicked into place. The strange noises, the shadowy figures, the fabricated charges, and the inconsistent messages all pointed toward a carefully designed trap. He understood now that he had been led to Berlin not for love, but for exploitation. The room felt colder as the truth settled in. Nadir realized he was not the first person to be deceived this way. The building, the manager, and possibly the neighbors all played roles in a system designed to trap and exploit lonely men like him. The more he thought about it, the more he felt watched, as if every move he made inside the apartment was being monitored. As night approached, a heavy silence filled the entire floor. Nadir sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the locked door, knowing that whatever he had stepped into was far more dangerous than anything he had imagined when he first boarded the plane. He had followed a dream to Germany, but now he feared he had walked straight into a nightmare. Carefully prepared long before his arrival, the night settled over the building like a heavy blanket, swallowing every faint sound and sinking the entire place into a silence that felt unnatural. Nadir sat in the dim room, trying to calm the storm inside his mind. He replayed every detail of the last few days, searching for something he might have misunderstood, but everything pointed toward one frightening truth. He had been trapped in a situation far more dangerous than a simple romance scam. The air felt colder than before, carrying a chill that made the room feel unfamiliar. He sensed that the walls around him held memories of others who had stayed before him. Men who had waited in the same uncertainty for someone who would never arrive. The power suddenly went out without warning, plunging the entire apartment into darkness. Nadir froze, listening for any signs of movement. The silence broke as heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway, slow and deliberate, as though someone was scanning each door along the corridor. The footsteps paused directly outside his room. He watched the faint outline of the door handle shift as someone tried to push it down, not forcefully, but with the calm confidence of someone who expected it to open. When the intruder found it locked, the handle released with a soft click. The footsteps moved away, fading into the building's deeper shadows. Nadir hid behind the wardrobe, gripping his bag tightly. Every instinct told him to leave, but the darkness outside the window felt just as threatening as the room itself. After several minutes, he heard another distant noise, something metallic falling onto the floor above him. It was followed by hurried steps, a muffled thump, what sounded like whispered instructions exchanged between multiple people. The building seemed alive, as if different floors were coordinating actions he did not understand. When the power returned hours later, the hallway lights flickered weakly, barely illuminating the worn-out paint. Nadir gathered his things, knowing he could not stay any longer. He opened the door cautiously and peered outside. The hallway was empty, but it held the uncomfortable aura of people who had been there recently. He forced himself to walk toward the stairwell, every step echoing louder than he wanted. His thoughts spiraled as he imagined what could happen if he was caught trying to escape. As he descended the stairs, he encountered Mirella Kassov, a woman who lived on the ground floor. She appeared fragile, with tired eyes that hinted at sleepless nights. Her presence surprised him. But what caught his attention was the expression on her face, an expression of someone who had seen far too much. Her cautious movements suggested she was used to monitoring the building carefully, as if she expected danger at any moment. She leaned slightly forward, communicating more through her guarded posture than any spoken words ever could. Her behavior, though wordless, warned him in ways he instantly understood. Through small gestures and the urgency in her eyes, she conveyed that she knew what was happening in the building. She had watched the pattern repeat itself. Lonely men arriving with hopeful eyes, waiting in the same apartment, only to vanish from the building after days of strange activity. Her fear, though silent, revealed more truth than anything he had discovered online. Nadir reached the bottom of the staircase and noticed the entrance door was half blocked by stacked crates that had not been there earlier. The placement seemed deliberate, as if designed to slow someone from making a quick exit. The hallway camera on the ceiling was pointed directly toward the apartment he had been staying in, suggesting it was being monitored more closely than the rest. Every detail added to the chilling sense that the building itself played a role in trapping victims. He stepped outside into the cold night, breathing in the sharp air that felt both liberating and frightening. The street was empty, unusually silent for a city like Berlin. The shadows cast by the streetlights stretched across the pavement, giving the impression that something could emerge from any corner without warning. Nadir walked quickly, refusing to look back, afraid that someone might be following him. His arrival at the police station brought temporary relief, though even the officers seemed concerned by the details of his story. When he handed over the documents he had collected, the forged bills, the unanswered messages, and the suspicious changes to Ayshera's profile, the officers exchanged uneasy glances. Their reaction confirmed that he had stumbled into something far larger than a simple scam. As he waited to make his official report, Nadir realized the depth of the danger he had escaped. The building, the manager, the unknown figures moving in the dark, and the orchestrated use of his identity all pointed to a network that operated with precision. It became clear that if he had stayed one more night, he might have become another unnamed victim, quietly erased without explanation. The night outside remained still, but Nadir understood that the silence did not represent safety. It represented the quiet before a truth he had yet to uncover, a truth that would reveal the full extent of everything he had unknowingly walked into, the morning after Nadir filed his report. Investigators began piecing together the fragments of the case he had brought to their attention. They collected his statements with careful precision, treating each detail as a potential clue. Although the officers refrained from expressing their full concerns, their tense expressions hinted that his situation was not unfamiliar. The documents he provided were photographed and logged, and the screenshots of Ayshera's messages were analyzed for digital traces. As the investigation unfolded, Nadir realized he had stepped into something far more complex than he had imagined. His bank confirmed that several unauthorized transactions had been routed through temporary digital wallets scattered across 3 different countries. Each account vanished moments after the money cleared, leaving no direct path to trace. The investigators explained that such financial movements were signatures of well-coordinated crime groups specializing in cross-border exploitation. Nadir felt a chill spread through him as he learned how methodically his savings had been drained, leaving him financially stranded with nothing to show for the months he had invested in the illusion of love. The German authorities launched deeper inquiries into the building he had stayed in. What they found was disturbing. The structure had been flagged multiple times in the past for irregular activities, but every previous report had vanished from the system due to administrative errors. Several tenants, listed as residents, were untraceable. With no records of entry or exit from the country, Rurik Hartmann, the stern building manager who had confronted Nadir, was discovered to have a criminal history hidden under altered identity papers. He had been linked to fraudulent property schemes, staged rental agreements, and disappearances involving vulnerable foreign visitors. When the police brought Rurik in for questioning, he attempted to portray himself as innocent, insisting that he simply managed the building. But inconsistencies in his statements quickly surfaced. Investigators found texts on his phone containing coded instructions that aligned with Nadir's arrival date. Hidden folders stored on his computer contained contracts resembling the fake bills Nadir had received, pre-filled with personal information taken from previous victims. The building's security footage revealed multiple unknown individuals entering through a side door at night, none of whom were registered as residents. It became clear that the property was functioning as a controlled environment for a criminal network, designed to manipulate and intimidate victims while facilitating their financial exploitation. Meanwhile, Mirella Kassov, the quiet neighbor from the ground floor, approached the authorities voluntarily. She carried a stack of notes and photographs she had collected over the past year evidence. She had secretly gathered whenever she suspected wrongdoing. Her materials revealed patterns of men arriving with luggage, staying in the same apartment Nadir had occupied, and leaving abruptly under suspicious circumstances. Some showed visible panic, while others appeared sick or injured. Mirella explained that she had tried reporting these events before, but nobody believed her due to her fragile appearance and lack of concrete proof. Nadir's case provided the final confirmation she needed to be taken seriously. The information she provided helped investigators assemble a clearer picture of the operation. The so-called Egyptian princess was not a single person, but a crafted persona used by multiple individuals. Stolen images, time-shifted messages, and artificial profiles formed an elaborate web designed to lure men emotionally before guiding them into controlled locations in Germany and other parts of Europe. Funds were extracted through psychological manipulation, fabricated emergencies, and threats disguised as official notices. The network relied on anonymity, digital layering, and the victim's shame to prevent exposure. Weeks passed as the authorities conducted raids, arrested involved individuals, and shut down several buildings connected to the scheme. Despite significant breakthroughs, the central identity behind the Ayshera persona remained untraceable. Investigators concluded that the profile was operated by multiple handlers, making it nearly impossible to pinpoint a single mastermind. Every time the police tried to follow a digital trail, it dissolved into a maze of servers in Eastern Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Nadir eventually returned to Pakistan, exhausted but grateful to have survived a situation that had claimed others. His savings were gone, and his trust had been shattered, but he carried with him a lesson that would stay for life. His story spread through online forums, documentaries, and awareness campaigns, warning others about the dangers of online manipulation and emotionally engineered traps? Although justice had been partially served, the absence of closure left a lingering unease. The mystery surrounding the identity behind the Egyptian princess persisted. Some believed they had already moved on to new victims in another country. Others suspected the persona had been retired, replaced by a completely new identity crafted for the next cycle. For Nadir, the unanswered questions formed a shadow that followed him quietly, reminding him how close he had come to disappearing into the same silence that had swallowed those before him.